You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB.
And looking forward to those calls after I finish with this call. CEO of NZR, Mr. Mark Robinson, joins us now from South Africa. Great place to be. You got to like the baubles of the job, don't you, Mark? I'm presuming you're looking forward to, here's an understatement, another rip snorter of a test match in Cape Town. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, hi, D'Arcy, and afternoon to all the listeners. It's good to be back in the Republic. Obviously, a couple of years ago since the All Blacks have been here, and it's been a long time since we've been to Cape Town, but you certainly notice the difference, not only coming out of altitude back to sea level, which is good for the lungs, but certainly the passion for the sport here and that sort of underlying All Black support, it feels like, is still really strong. So lots of people to welcome the team into Cape Town, and just a lot of people around the hotel and trainings and things like that. So yeah, there's a nice buzz building. I think it's been sold out for some time. Really befitting of what's been described, and it's going around a little bit now. D'Arcy is sort of the greatest rivalry around rugby, and it feels like every time these two teams meet, there's just so much hype and excitement around it. So it's great to be here.
Of course, the big news this week, Mark, is the fact that the tours should be returning. I'm talking the Springboks over here, the All Blacks back over there. This is a return to the wonderment of the tours. I know there's a lot of very happy punters out there on both sides of the Indian Ocean. So how confident are you that these tours will actually return?
Oh, look, there's a little bit of more work to do. You know, I can understand why there's probably been a few comments released in this part of the world. It certainly aligns with the amount of hype going on here at the moment. But nevertheless, there's still a few details to be worked through, and the trend is, really positive in terms of the direction of getting something finalised, hopefully in the near future. But a little more work to do. But every time we seem to be engaged with the South Africans about different ideas of working together, it's a really, really positive, constructive relationship at the moment, and that's certainly been built on in the last 10 days or so here. So it's been really good. But it does provide a bit of a, for those of you, I know, D'Arcy, you're a bit of a romantic as it comes to traditions of the sport, and this feels like it's, although it's going back in time a little bit, the traditions are so rich and the fans are so engaged in it. It feels like it's definitely the right things for the fans, and I know that the players are super excited as well to be able to test themselves in an environment like Africa for a 6 to 7 week period is something that will certainly be a career highlight for them too.
So where did this concept start? How long has it been going for, these discussions? Was it initiated by yourselves, by South African Rugby?
Oh, look, we've been talking with him about it for a good couple of years now at least. And I guess it was born out of the fact that, with the change in Super, we don't have as much connection to each other. So it started about how can we work together more, given all the challenges around cost of travel now, and distances, player welfare and all that sort of thing. And so, we just kept building on those conversations from a couple of years back, and there were lots of different ideas about club and country and all sorts of different things. And this has been the idea that's really resonated the most for both countries, I think. So I don't think it's a case of any, one person or one of the nations taking credit for it, D'Arcy. It's just been an outcome of a really good process of a couple of unions that certainly respect each other and want to be able to work together a lot.
You said roadblocks, Mark. So what exactly is in the way of these tours going ahead?
Oh, look, I wouldn't call them roadblocks. I just think in any, development of a major idea like this, which is a departure from how things have been done in the past, is just a lot of things, some expected and sometimes some unexpected to work through, and some are more major than others, So we're really down to, at present time, just looking at the final schedules and final sort of commercials, and they, as I say, they are getting worked through all the time, and we're coming closer and closer together on those things the more we sort of talk. So, there's just a bit more work to do, really. I wouldn't say big roadblocks or big obstacles or anything like that. It's just a case of just taking our time to make sure we get this right. It's an important concept, and it's one we want to make sure we make all the right decisions for and putting it together.
So it is looking like it's going to happen, Mark. There's a bit of work to do, but it is signed and sealed. It's just a matter now of getting delivered.
Oh, look, we're really encouraged, D'Arcy. I know I know you're working hard to get a sort of definitive statement out of me here, but it's just a bit too early to confirm it. I think we just need a little bit more time, but it's tracking really positive, as I've said a couple of times already, and there's good sentiment between the unions, and we're clear on what has to be sort of worked through. So hopefully we've got more to say before, the next couple of months, really.
So does this have much of an effect on the global calendar? Is this going to get in the face of anything that's already pre-planned? Did the World Rugby have to be involved in this?
Well, it works within the existing calendar, so there's no change to the calendar as such. It'll be played in the Rugby Championship window. We're working really hard with Australia and Argentina as to what in 26 and 30 their fixtures will look like, and then 27, 28 and 29 as it relates to the next cycle. There's some really great work as to how all four unions will be working together. And 26 and 30, it really deserves to wait till sort of more news comes out of Sanzar on this, but they're thinking really creatively about what other countries might be able to be involved, how we can still have some connection to Australia and Argentina in those years. So there's certainly a really positive intent from New Zealand and South Africa to make sure that those teams are getting great fixtures still, and then there's other opportunities possibly for other unions, and thinking about that 8-week window in the Rugby Championship that can be utilised as well. So, you're right. I mean, there's a lot to work through there, but I wouldn't describe it as a change or a extension of the global calendar. The global calendar, the Regulation 9 windows will stay exactly as they are now, and our test match schedule will sit, the same as it essentially does now, sort of between 13 and 14 in any given year, depending on what's going on and what stage of a World Cup cycle we're at.
So what about Australia and what about Argentina? If this actually happens, these South African-New Zealand tours, is there a chance that maybe there'll be a similar situation with both Argentina and Australia?
Yeah, that's been talked about in one of the years. Can we utilise one of the years to do more traditional, you could have two sort of 3-week tours potentially. But again, that's more for sort of Sanzar to announce and share more information on that when the time's right. But they're doing a huge amount of work with their competition and tournament teams on different models, and that sort of idea is certainly figuring for at least one of the years maybe.
And it appears, Mark Robinson, CEO of NZR, that the governance situation that's been fraught over recent times, it looks like it's going to be sorted out, and the various parties are coming together to try and find some common ground to push forward. I believe as early as December, there'll be some solutions presented. Yeah,
you're exactly right. There's probably not much for me to build on that, D'Arcy. I think the stakeholder groups have come together in the last few weeks. It sounds like they've made good progress. Seems to be a clear way forward now as to what next steps are for working through a process to appoint the board by time before Christmas. So that's what I've been updated on while I've been over here, and largely seems to be a good coming together of the game. And it seems that most views of the stakeholders have been heard in that forum, and they're looking forward to getting on with things now.
So how deeply involved are you personally, Mark Robinson, as CEO of NZR? You're getting your hands dirty. Are you in that space to a degree?
Well, I'm not involved in all. I haven't been involved in the governance advisory panel work. But we do provide a lot of support through our, mainly through our legal team, D'Arcy, the people that are close to the Constitution and all the different machinations of what sits in the Constitution as it relates to the board. So we provide a lot of support there into the stakeholder groups, and we provide a lot of support primarily again through our legal team into Patsy and the board, informing them of what's going on. But I'm not involved directly at all.
We'll talk a bit of code shortly, Mark, I promise, but before that, there's a rather large meeting set to go ahead. It's a huge meeting. It's around the finances of the game, and we know that globally it's fraught. All the CEOs and the major shareholders involved in this are coming together to try and knock together a solution.
Yeah, I think when, we've been pretty open, certainly when we share our own results and the challenges we have of making our overall model work, that we're certainly not on our own there. And in fact, when we compare ourselves to a lot, or most national unions around the world, I think we're doing, relatively well in that space. But notwithstanding that, none of us can play the game on our own. We need each other as national unions to be strong, and we need, to find ways to be able to create and drive greater efficiency. So the cost base of the game, be thinking more about that. And we need to be thinking about how we can work together to create greater revenues as well. So, they are important meetings. We're not there for very long, it's fair to say. And coming from all the way, I'm going from Sydney myself back up to Dublin for a couple of days, essentially. And we certainly hope we get some really, great engagement and some really meaningful sort of outcomes from the meetings. And it's fair to say most major things are on the table. The role of World Rugby in this, and some of the competitions that are challenged in terms of getting up and going at the moment, like some of the, no secret things like the Sevens, WXV, the women's game in general, in terms of making, a model that can work for both of those formats. And there's a whole lot of commonalities across all the national unions that we're going to sit down and hopefully spend some good time on. And like I said before, some ideas around revenue, as I guess with most unions now taking on partners to help drive revenues and focusing on their own models. There's also a number of ways we can probably be working better across all of the national unions and with World Rugby to drive revenues a bit more.
So what about the shadow of Saudi Arabia, plainly very keen to get involved in sport right across the globe, a number of different sports. They've got a big war chest behind them. Is that a possibility? Is that advanced any further forward?
Well, no, I mean, you've asked me a couple of times on this, D'Arcy, in recent times about the connection with Saudi Arabia, and we don't have any, and haven't in the past, and I'm not aware of any, discussion on that. That's not an agenda item during these meetings in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, but to be honest, this is always floating around, this concept of Saudi money. It still seems to be in the ether. So I suppose I have to ask questions like that, Mark. I'm sorry that you're bored of my narrative, mate.
Yeah, it's a fair question, D'Arcy. I mean, but that's just a reality. I think there's always speculation around the game, and we become accustomed to dealing with things that, frankly, aren't true or aren't anywhere near the truth, to be honest, sometimes. And that's just the way we have to work through and operate in a sport where there's a high degree of scrutiny and a high degree of interest and passion for the sport. And that I always say that's fantastic at one level, because it shows that people care and they want to understand the direction of the sport. So we understand that, but at the same time, we have to be clear when things are factually incorrect as well.
Thanks for clearing that up, Mark. But the summit itself, it's only short. What's actually the goal? What is the end game here? What do you guys need to have packaged up before you get out of Dublin?
Well, I think the backdrop to this, obviously, D'Arcy, is the election for chair of World Rugby and the election of a new board in mid-November. So I think, my sense is World Rugby are looking to advance some of this work and try to create some momentum, so that when the new board come together and the executive are working with them, we have a bit of a pathway to work on these major topics we're going to be talking about. So coming out of that, we've got some really clear actions that actually can see some change come about in some of these areas that we're all concerned about. So certainly, sitting here right now, I don't have all the answers as to what's going to come out of it. You've got to appreciate that, there are 12 unions going in, all with different lenses and different views on some things. Some were very aligned, and some, there's not strong alignment. So it's just a case of understanding each other's views and working through that and getting the best sort of level of alignment we can on important topics, and then I guess developing a plan for each of those and working forward from there.
Of course, the reason behind all of these meetings is the love of the game of rugby. Going to South Africa from an All Blacks perspective is right at the pinnacle. It's been tough going for Razor Robertson so far, but if you look at his tenure at the moment and what he's achieved, are you rating this highly? Are you happy with what Scott Robertson's achieved so far? Oh,
look, we're really happy with the work that's going in, D'Arcy. It's as you say, a new group, new playing group and new management group. Some great glimpses at times of what's going to be possible for this new group. Clearly, some things to work on. So no, we're we're really pleased with where they're working to, and certainly no, to your question about effort, there's no doubt there's a huge amount of effort and massive amount of work going in. It's been nice to be, in and around camp in the last 8 or 9 days to see that firsthand and see, some of the efforts going in, the detail that goes into preparing for these games. Certainly a bit different to my day, D'Arcy, of that 25 years ago. There's a lot more involved in it now, and we've got really good quality people all working really hard together, so we've just got to keep on supporting them, backing them, and looking forward to the weekend.
I think the most intriguing thing here about this game in Cape Town is the changes that have been made right across the board for the All Blacks, more predominantly for the South African side. We don't really know what either of them are thinking, especially Rassie Erasmus. This just continues what is a wonderful cat and mouse game, Mark.
Yeah, I guess it's a storyline coming out, it seems to be, D'Arcy. I think Razor and Rassie are just doing, what's right for their team. It's great that the fans and the media can pick up on it and call, storylines like cat and mouse, but I genuinely believe they're looking at their squads. They're looking at winning, in the near term. They're looking at developing for the future. They've all got plans around what the next, 1, 2, 3, 4 years looks like, and they put a lot of thought and effort into that, and I think that's what we're seeing around selection is just a reflection of both camps, working to their own plans really. But yeah, it does. In fixtures like this, there's just so much intrigue, and so much scrutiny. There's lots of cool different storylines, and certainly the South African media here is really, really engaged and passionate, and so it's not surprising we're seeing lots of different storylines, which is great.
All right, Mark Robinson, give us a punt. How much are the All Blacks going to win by?
I'll take it by any, D'Arcy. It's just going to be, it's going to be a fantastic game and atmosphere, and I know that the team have put in a huge amount of effort, and we're looking forward to supporting them on Saturday. I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot more support than we had at Ellis Park as well. There'll be a little bit more black in the crowd, hopefully, and a little bit more noise for us as well, and hopefully all that can contribute to getting us home.
Yeah, well, hopefully it can. Looking forward to it. There's an understatement for you. Mark Robinson, CEO of NZR. As always, thank you very much for your time here on News Talk ZB. You go well.
Thanks, D'Arcy. Great chat.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.